My ungrateful parents have refused buy me acne cream, so I refused 10 years later to pay for my mother's expensive surgery. My parents never had money for me. No dinner outings, no gifts, just excuses. When I asked for acne cream, my mother refused. My father had more important expenses, like alcohol. The bullying was relentless. Even when I found someone who cared about me, their words stuck. I lost my confidence, and eventually, I lost him too. But I used my pain. I got into tech, landed a job at Google, and made millions. Suddenly, my parents remembered me. I paid their rent, bought them a house, even got them a Ferrari. Then my mother asked for Botox. I reminded her she couldn't even buy me acne cream. I refused. They called me selfish, but they never expected what I would do next. My brother and I ended up at the same university. I was 19, he was 21. I took a year off, so I was a freshman, and he let me crash at his apartment. Things got weird. After a week, it was obvious he was into me. Even with his super hot girlfriend around, his eyes were always on me. And honestly, I liked it. I started pushing boundaries, wearing tighter clothes, no bra, even playing with myself in bed while he slept on the floor. One day, I snooped on his phone and found his search history full of sister videos. That's when I decided to test him. I asked if he wanted to share the bed. He agreed. That night, I felt something poking my thigh. I turned around and there it was, his Johnson. He just smirked at me. Things escalated from there, and let's just say he plowed the heck out of me at school the next day. What's the most devastating thing your parents have said? I was having a full-on meltdown in the kitchen after failing my last math test, blasting sad music and dramatically exclaiming, "The only thing I'm good at is breathing." Without skipping a beat, my parents looked at me and, in perfect unison, said, "But you have asthma." What's the dumbest thing you've seen happen in lethal weather? A massive snowstorm rolled in, and the school decided to shut everything down. Classes were canceled, and everyone was staying indoors to avoid the freezing conditions. But then, out of nowhere, we spotted this one kid trudging through the snow, determined to make it to class. My roommate noticed him and stuck her head out the window yelling, "Hey, classes are canceled." The kid suddenly stopped, turned around dramatically, and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Thank you, God!" I completely lost it. It was such an over-the-top reaction, and it still cracks me up thinking about it. What was the worst event at your school? There was a girl in my class named Maria. I knew her quite well, and her father was a math teacher at school. At some point, she and her father disappeared without a trace. It seems that Maria got pregnant because of an older student, but she didn't want to tell anyone except the school counselor. In the end, she decided that she didn't want to keep the baby and went to a specialized clinic. The next day at school, she fainted and was taken to the hospital. There she gave birth, but the baby was dead. Everyone found out and her father was furious. He went to the school and beat the student who did this to Maria. Because of this, Maria's father ended up in prison. Is it right what he did? My daughter was very beautiful, and because of this, she had many admirers. Every day she had boys who told her they loved her, but she had to politely refuse them. This was quite difficult because she didn't want to hurt anyone. However, one day a boy came to her who told her he liked her. As usual, he thanked her and didn't give much importance to the event, but this made him angry. He started following her on the street and at school. One day when my daughter was alone at home, he entered through the window of our house, then went to her and tried to undress her, but she was prepared. She defended herself with a knife. But did a mistake take his life? Is it her fault? My parents are gold diggers. When I left home for university, they told me not to call them. When I came back for Christmas, they were distant and gave me no gifts. At the end of the school year, I tried calling them, but their number was disconnected. Panicked, I reached out to my grandmother, who told me my parents had moved away. She had their new number, but was instructed not to give it to me until I finished university. Then she hung up, leaving me stranded with no money and nowhere to go. Forced to survive, I sold all my belongings and ended up homeless for a month. I learned to live on less than 20% of my income and save the rest. After 25 years of hard work, I became the vice president of a software company. 2 weeks ago, I ran into my mother. I kept my composure, but she invited me to dinner. I accepted, hoping for some answers. At dinner, my father admitted they abandoned me because I pursued software instead of accounting. I calmly replied that my hobby had made me a millionaire. Then, without hesitation, they asked me for $2 million, claiming it was repayment for raising me and making me who I am today. Parents of killers, what happened? My son was bullied nonstop at school because of a birthmark on his shoulder. One day his bully tried to cut it off. That was it. We pulled him out. But the bully didn't stop. He found our address, waited outside, and taunted him. We went to the police, but they did nothing. Then things went quiet. We thought it was over. Until one night, the bully threw a brick through our window and broke into our home, searching for my son, shouting threats, kicking open doors. My son was hiding in his room with his older brother, who had my loaded firearm. The intruder flung open the door, ready to attack. 2 shots, center mass. My boys were only 13 and 14. It was ruled self-defense, no charges. It should have never gone this far. But that night, they had no other choice. Teachers, what's the best thing a student has ever said? One year while teaching 8th grade, I had a very quiet student in my class, along with one of those classic queen bee types who always craved attention. She would blurt out things like, "You're probably my second least favorite teacher," and often mocked other girls. What really bothered me was how she treated the quiet kid. He reminded me a lot of myself at that age. One day I assigned a group project and paired the two of them with two other boys. After some time, I noticed the girl wasn't contributing at all. Instead, she was chatting with the two boys while the shy student did all the work. I walked over and asked why he was doing everything. The mean girl immediately claimed he wasn't letting them help, which I knew wasn't true. So I suggested that since he had already done most of it, they could finish the rest. The girl waved it off and said, "Nah, it's fine. He can do it. He's a geek anyway," making the two boys laugh. I looked at her and said, "You should be kinder to him. He might be your boss someday." Without skipping a beat, the quiet kid finally spoke up. He said, "No thanks. I don't want to run a circus when I grow up." My cruel siblings refused to let me come to their weddings. I have 4 older siblings. All of them are married now. Guess who wasn't invited to any of their weddings? Mister. They all had adult-only weddings, and somehow that included their own sibling. When my oldest sister got married, I was 10. Sure, I kind of understood. But when my other sister got married when I was 12, still no invite. And at 12, I was well behaved. Then my brother got married when I was 15. At first, he wanted kids at the wedding, but our family convinced him otherwise. I begged him to make an exception. He said no. "If we make an exception for you, what about other kids?" That hurt. Finally, my last sister got married when I was 17. I didn't even ask this time. I knew the answer. My 18-year-old step-cousin made the cut, but I didn't. Now, I'm getting married, and none of them are invited. Fair is fair. Teacher, has a student ever made you cry? When I was younger, I had a student who was a bully, always disrupting class, picking fights, and stealing. But something about him seemed different. The more I observed, the more I saw that underneath it all, he was deeply insecure and afraid. Instead of punishing him like everyone else, I showed him kindness. Over time, his behavior improved. One day in detention, he opened up to me. He told me that 2 years ago, his father had a breakdown, took his mother's life, and then his own. Since then, he had been acting out because he didn't know how to cope. He had never told anyone before. He had no friends, and no teachers liked him. For the rest of the year, I checked in on him and helped him. On the last day, he gave me a note, thanking me for changing his life and helping him realize he needed support. That was 32 years ago. I still carry that note in my wallet. What's the most heartbreaking secret you discovered about your parent after they passed? A month after my dad passed from a heart attack, I was cleaning out his closet when I found an old jacket. Inside was a crumpled letter from my elementary school, dated 12 years ago. "Dear Mr. Thompson, we regret to inform you that due to financial constraints, we cannot offer Sarah a spot in our gifted program. The annual tuition is $115,000. I remember Dad telling me the program was full, hugging me, and promising we'd find something better. I moved on, but then I read the next line. However, if you maintain the school grounds on weekends and evenings, we can reduce the fee to $7,000. It all clicked. His late nights, the smell of grass and paint, how he never missed a parent's day, always in a clean shirt. The day after his funeral, my Harvard acceptance letter arrived. I broke down remembering his words, "We'll find something better." Now I just wonder, was it all worth it? My daughter put a boy in the hospital, and I've never been prouder. My daughter, a junior, was at her locker when the football captain slapped her butt. She grew up with 3 brothers, so she didn't hesitate. She turned and kicked him as hard as she could. He ended up in the hospital, unable to play football or walk properly for a week. The next day, we met with his parents, who demanded she be suspended and threatened to sue. But when we watched the security footage, it clearly showed him touching her without consent, something he left out when telling his dad. Then we saw her deliver the most perfect kick to the groin. His dad, furious but out of arguments, stormed out. I've never been prouder of her. Tomorrow, I'm ending my engagement. Last week, I found out my fiancé cheated on me with her boss, a married man with 3 kids. His wife sent me screenshots of their texts where they mocked us and laughed about keeping it a secret. Right now, she's sitting across from me, planning our honeymoon, unaware that tomorrow everything changes. Her boss's wife is divorcing him and reporting them to HR. I'm packing her things, canceling the wedding, and cutting her out of my life. She's been calling non-stop since the news broke at her office. I had to explain everything to her devastated mother. She and my sister will be here when my fiancé comes to collect her things. She cried, asking why I told people. I snapped, telling her how humiliating it was to get tested for STDs because of her. She didn't deny anything. My landlord is changing the locks. I'm shattered, but at least I found out before the wedding. I got the police to arrest my parents. My parents took out credit cards and loans in my name. At first, they were paying them off, so I had no idea. But when they fell behind, I never saw the bills because I didn't have access to the mailbox. I just finished my third year of university and planned to move out, which required a credit check. My parents freaked out and forbade me from leaving, saying it was a waste of money. That's when I discovered they had racked up $660,000 in debt under my name. I told them they had to pay it off immediately and that house rules needed to change. They refused, saying they had no money and wouldn't be pressured. So I called my aunt for help. She shared stories of parents ruining their kids' futures, which made me realize I had to act. I went to the police, reported them, and they were arrested. I had a crush on a boy I met in kindergarten, and I didn't even try to hide it. I thought being open about it was the right thing to do. After all, that's how people on TV always handled it. But surprise, it didn't go as planned. In fact, it didn't work at all. After that, none of the boys wanted to hang out with me. But that's not the main point of the story. Fast forward to third grade, a new kid joined our class. He was kind of a jerk. One day, he asked me if I had a crush on anyone, and I just casually said, yeah. Well, this guy immediately turned around and shouted to my crush, "Hey, she has a crush on you." My crush just sighed and said, "Yeah, I know. Everyone knows. Thanks." The jerk was clearly trying to embarrass me in front of everyone, but it totally backfired. Why? Because I didn't have the social awareness to feel ashamed about my feelings. I was completely unfazed by his attempt to humiliate me. When did you realize your son was no longer a child? I got a call from the school principal and found out that my son Alex had seriously beaten some kids. I didn't raise him like that, and I realized that something bad must have happened. I went to the principal's office and she told me that she was going to expel Alex. Then I turned to him and asked him to tell me the story. Apparently, during a break, he saw some boys cornering a girl in the bathroom and making her undress, and he had to intervene. He punched each of them and in the end saved her. The principal didn't want to admit the truth, so I congratulated my son for what he did and took him to another school. It's good what I did. My sister put a boy in the hospital, and I've never been prouder. My sister was in her junior year, getting something from her locker in between classes, when the captain of the basketball team walked by and smacked her on the butt. She grew up with 3 brothers, so when she realized what this kid had just done, she turned around and kicked him in the balls as hard as she possibly could. She came home and told me what had happened, and I was surprised I hadn't gotten a call from her school yet. Just as she finished telling me about it, our phone rang. It was her assistant principal asking me to come meet with the boy's parents the next day. We went to the office, and there they were. Apparently, he had to go to the doctor right after, because she had kicked him so hard and so perfectly that he couldn't play basketball for a week and was struggling to walk. His father wanted her suspended and was planning to sue us for assault. We all watched the security camera footage together, and we could clearly see him put his hands on her uninvited. Apparently, when he told his dad what happened, he left that part out. Then we all got to witness my sister turn around and land the most perfectly executed kick to the balls I've ever seen in my life. You could tell every guy in the hallway could feel his pain. We all looked at his father, and he was so pissed off that he just got up and left with his son. My daughter put a boy in the hospital, and I'm proud of her. During a break, my daughter went to her locker to look for something. Then the captain of the football team walked behind her and slapped her on the butt. She turned and kicked him as hard as she could between the legs, then left. After a while, I got a call from the principal, who told me to come to the school. In the office, I met with the father of the boy who was kicked. He said his son had to go to the doctor, and that because of the kick, he was walking crooked. He demanded that my daughter be expelled immediately. However, the principal showed us the video. After seeing what his son did, the boy's father got up angrily and left. Did my daughter do the right thing? When did you realize your daughter was no longer a kid? I got a call from the school principal and found out that my daughter Ava had seriously beaten some kids. I didn't raise him like that, and I realized that something bad must have happened. I went to the principal's office and she told me that she was going to expel Ava. Then I turned to her and asked her to tell me the story. Apparently, during a break, she saw some boys cornering a girl in the bathroom and making her undress, and she had to intervene. She punched each of them and in the end saved her. The principal didn't want to admit the truth, so I congratulated my daughter for what he did and took him to another school. It's good what I did. A friend is suing me even though I paid her for the broken item. 3 years ago, I was invited by a friend to her house for a party. There I sat on the couch, but I didn't realize that her laptop was there too. I accidentally sat on it and broke it. Then I told her I would pay her the cost of that laptop, and she accepted. I had to pay 10,000 RON, but I didn't complain. Now I received an email from her saying I have to give her another 10,000 RON. I called her, and she told me that she expected me to buy her another laptop because of that incident. She told me that if I don't do what she says, she will sue me. Is it her fault? What was the biggest scandal caused at your school? A girl in my class was allowed to look at her phone during class because she got updates about her father, who was in the hospital. Every time she got a notification, she would start screaming and crying. We got used to it, but the teachers didn't. In math class, she heard she got a text. The teacher knew what it meant and confiscated her phone. However, the girl saw the notification and started hyperventilating and hitting herself and was taken to the principal's office by security. That very day, her father died, and because of the teacher, she never got to see her father again. What was the saddest event you took part in? I am the manager of a nearby restaurant, so I have seen many strange and difficult events. On Friday, an old man came and asked for a table for 6 people. It seemed he had invited his family to the restaurant because he missed them. He was very calm and polite and told us he would order when the others arrived. An hour passed, but no one had shown up. He decided to have an appetizer. Another 2 hours went by, and still no one came. He tried to call his family, but no one answered. Finally, he asked for the bill. The whole time we tried to be very nice to him, but when he left the restaurant, he looked very sad. You can't help but feel sorry for him. Has a lie ever ruined someone's life? I had a very popular boy at school. The captain of the football team once threw one of the biggest parties I've ever been to. Even football coaches from other schools came out to try to convince him to join their team. Out of the blue, his ex-girlfriend grabbed a microphone and accused him of cheating on her with her sister. Obviously, what he was saying wasn't true, but his parents really believed him. His mother scolded him in front of everyone. He never came to high school again, and his parents wouldn't let him leave the house. The coaches who once would have done anything to have him on their team didn't even want to mention him.